We're going to begin in China, where the Central Economic Work Conference has just concluded in Beijing. The annual conference is where Chinese leaders chart economic plans for the year ahead. They say 2025 will be critical for boosting the economy, strengthening reforms, and incorporating technological advances. Okay, joining us now to discuss China's economy further and its goals for 2025, Einar Tangen. Einar is the senior fellow at Taihe Institute and chairman of Asia Narratives. It's good to see you again, Einar. Thanks for taking time to chat with us.
Always good, Sean.
Okay, President Xi delivering an important address at that meeting, acknowledging some continuing stiff headwinds, external factors continuing to weigh on China's economy, but overall positive and high hopes for 2025. What do you see?
Well, I mean, China has some headwinds, but it also has some strengths. Obviously, this is all in the shadow of Donald Trump. What is he going to do? But I want to put it a little bit in perspective, Sean. This conference is really how to achieve what was set out at the two sessions, and it's attended by both the party and also the government. So it is, how do we get this done? And this is exactly what they've done. It's Xi Jinping is saying, look, there's reasons to be hopeful. You start looking at Chinese savings rate, it's 45% versus in the U.S. where it's only 3.6 or it kind of hovers around that 3% rate. There are differences in unemployment. In China, it's 5.1, 4.1 in the U.S. But China has, increased its per capita disposable income by a lot, 6.1% after inflation in 2023 versus the U.S. where it was less than 2%.
Yeah, and a lot of that coming with pulling hundreds of millions of people out of poverty over the last few decades. Now, I was in Beijing in March talking to you during two sessions, and as you talked about, it has been the goal throughout this year to focus on innovation, high quality production. But with the drag on housing and domestic consumption lagging, how is Beijing going to meet these lofty goals?
Well, it's really about instilling confidence. Right now, loans are down because people just are concerned. I mean, the international situation with so many conflicts going on, with Donald Trump threatening tariffs, people are saying, oh, what's going to happen? So, yes, business-wise, they're not seeking loans individually. People are even saving more than they were in the past. So at this point, it's really about how you get the Chinese people confident in the future, and that is not going to be relying on the international situation. So this is why you hear about this. It's all about the domestic internal consumption and things like this.
Okay, let's talk more about Trump. China, of course, is the second largest economy in the world. So how is China planning to address the return of Trump and his plan for these tariffs? Now, there's been a lot of discussion here in the United States that these are just hardball tactics and are being pursued to strengthen the U.S. point of negotiating. Is that going to work with Beijing?
No, 2016 and 2024 are not the same years. As they say, you can't swim in the same river twice. It's a situation where Donald Trump has gone back to his base tactics. He wants to, frighten you. He sets big bookends. You look at his cabinet. I mean, there's everyone from people who've worked for Soros to people who are neocons. It gives them a lot of leeway, but it's not going to work. China is in a very, very different position than technologically, et cetera. So people are here just waiting to see exactly what he does. Anticipating is almost impossible. You don't know if he's going to slap 10%, 35%, or 60% from day one. Obviously, he has a very ambitious agenda. There are real questions about doing all of these things simultaneously, and if it's possible, and whether he has the manpower to do it. I mean, he selected cabinet members based on their loyalty to him, not necessarily their experience and expertise.
Yeah, and also going back to 2016, while Trump was pursuing this America First policy, China was really opening up a lot of different trade avenues all over the world. So its economic outlook, China's GDP goals for 2025 and beyond. There have been a number of stimulus measures that have taken root in China, especially in the second half of this year, and a big focus on key entities working together. Fiscal, monetary, employment, industrial, regional trade. It goes on, and including the country opening up for reform. So how is this going to really help China move forward?
Well, there's a real stark difference. Remember, it's not just China who's looking at the situation and wondering what's going to happen in America. It's the entire world. Trump has said 10% against everybody, and then more recently he said 25% against his neighbors, Mexico and Canada. And then he said 10% more. No one knows exactly what that means in terms of China. But remember, those are the three largest trading partners for the United States. Total U.S. imports $3.8 trillion worth of goods. That means that basically the U.S. consumer is going to be facing a lot of inflation going forward if he goes forward with that. But China's example is in very, very stark contrast to the U.S. U.S. is saying we're going to put up barriers, high fences, small yards, but those yards are growing. Whereas China says, no, we're going to open up our economy. We're going to continue with the Belt and Road, continue filling in what we started with $1 trillion worth of investment, which has yielded a very, very good results for developing countries, which continue to do better than the U.S. In terms of GDP growth.
Quickly now, any expectations for monetary policy changes in Beijing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a coordination. What you were talking about earlier is the result of planning, a lot of it. In the U.S., our plans change depending on who's in power. In China, it's very incremental. And what they're doing is adjusting. So yes, a monetary and fiscal policy will be combined. There'll be more investment and also lowering of rates as they try to stimulate people's interest in getting involved, making sure that the domestic economy is strong because that's what they can control, not the international one.
Einar Tangen, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.